And I think we are live here. So welcome here at this live stream, a little bit of a different concept. So it was rather a long time that we had a hangout like this. So just a live Q&A. I'm checking here if YouTube is behaving nice, because you know with these live streams it's always a little bit tricky if everything is okay. But what a luxury feeling just sitting at here's my computer, so instead of behind the keys of my piano, not knowing actually what's going on the computer. So now I should be in full control. So no playing tonight, just a Q&A or just hang out with each other here, talking about things that we want to bring up, and that's what we're going to do tonight. So 30 minutes perhaps, we have a little bit of time, and so I was asked to do this by many of you, and I'm happy to do that. So, and now I'm clicking on this here, and then everything should be fine. So hello Tom, Emmy. So Tom is inviting us all into his backyard because he says that it's very much like the thumbnail I was using today. And yeah, I had no inspiration for the thumbnail, as I thought, well, let's be a little bit relaxed, and what's more relaxed than hanging out at the beach. So next live stream will be in Tom's backyard. Jonathan is here, always great to see you. El Fogon del Buen Gusto. I think you're a new name here, so welcome. Okay, so what I'm going to do today, just scrolling to the chat, Fiverr's here, and my wife Anya is also here. She is moderating the chat. Okay, talking a little bit about what I am doing lately, which is rather obvious if you follow the channel, but there are some things going on behind the scenes, and if you have questions on the last videos or just things that pops in your mind, then it's the time to ask, because I'm just here waiting for that. What I wanted to show you for a long time and actually make a video about is this list. Some of you will see that. Hello Henri, great to have you. This is my Beethoven list, and I cannot show it from close because the camera is not focusing anymore. Thank you, Mr. Canon, for disabling that when I'm live streaming. But actually I should make a video on this, because that's the Beethoven project. When we start here, well, over here, yeah, like that, and then we continue, and then when we arrive here, everything is done. So it's 3 years. 22 CDs. There's no vinyl disc planned as we speak for the Beethoven. I know some of you have asked me that. I know we have some very, I would say die-hard vinyl lovers, and I'm one myself, but it's a huge project on its own, and you know, it might be in a second step that we are going to launch, perhaps in bits and pieces, the Beethoven project. But in fact, the practicing sessions that we are doing now is around these 3 first CDs. So the CDs will come in 7 boxes of 3, and sounds like I'm promoting, but it's not. I'm just informing you. Well, maybe a little bit of promotion, who knows. So 3 boxes, 3 CDs, 1 box, so 7 boxes. Every red square is a CD, and every green, what's that, rectangular, is a box. So 7 boxes of 3 CDs. And then there's 1 box, 7 multiplied by 3 is 21, and we have 22 CDs. So the 22nd CD is actually the Kurfürsten Sonatas, which is his official opus 1. And Beethoven wanted to have those sonatas, which he composed when he was 13 years old, published. And for a reason, I don't know why, perhaps he was proud of them. And they were actually quite nice pieces. Like from Mozart you have these young works, and from other composers as well. And actually from Beethoven, I guess, or he lacked some young works that were published. So Haslinger, I think, published those in 1700, around 2021, 22, something like that. So, but the Kurfürsten sonatas are really solid pieces. So 20-25 minutes, maybe not 25 minutes, even in my tempo. Even in my tempo, it's a long piece. So they would fit a CD nicely, but they are, in my opinion, they were a little bit, you know, to start this Beethoven series with the Kurfürsten sonatas. I thought, well, that might be not the best thing to do. although it's nice music, it's not like his first sonatas, obviously not. So I thought, and they're too nice to leave out, so we're going to do them in the future months, weeks perhaps. They're not too difficult either, and they go on the clavichord really well. So do them as a bonus CD. And probably if you're going to launch the 21 CDs, then everyone who buys this up front gets the bonus CD for free. Okay, Miriam, great to see you here. Rostislav, great to see you all as always. Susan is here, great. A lot of patrons. Mikhail from Germany. So it's not Michael, Mikhail. Amy had a dream last night. Okay, to give a concert there. Well, who knows? I was invited once to... yeah, you're from Finland. I was invited to Finland. I will maybe correct me if I'm wrong. It's 2 years ago. But then just for a concert with... what's her name? She's a great player. Clavichord player. Shame on me that I don't come up with her name. But anyway, she lives in Finland. And she invited me for her clavichord festival. But then Anya got a little accident, so he had to cancel that. It would be first flight to Finland also. First flight overall for the girls. So... Now Thomas, Kurfürsten, the Kurfürst. I don't know how to pronounce that in German. Michael will know that better than I. He was one of the patrons of Beethoven. The Hammerklavier Sonata is dedicated to him. He had a terrific career, I think, in several... I think in a moment he even became Archduke. And he was a dedicatee for the Kurfürsten sonatas, which Beethoven basically composed still in Bonn. So when he had lessons from Gottlob Neve, and Neve was a clavichord player also. So this whole tradition of, and actually second generation Bach student. So isn't that cool that Beethoven played the Wohltemperierte Klavier in Bonn, and we know that Neve had a Friederici clavichord, so very much alike mine. And we know that because Friederici was one of the most famous keyboard makers of that time. And in the 80s was more towards the end of his career. There were two brothers, by the way, I think. And so he had several agents. C.P.E. Bach was one of them. Mozart was one of them, Father Mozart. And Neve was also one of his agents. So, and Neve was a student of, if I'm not mistaken, but I've made a video on that, I think, long time ago, of Homilius, I believe. So a Bach student. So second generation Bach, and then you come, actually Beethoven, you could consider him as a third generation Bach student. How cool is that? So, and he composed those sonatas in Bonn. Okay. Just scrolling to the chat now, as we have no topic really today, and I'm just reading what you're typing here. Miriam says, I've heard something horrible today. Mozart's Requiem, Kyrie much too quick by William Christie. Yeah, who's a nice, very fine musician, by the way. The thing is, if you once are on the other side, as I like to call that, there's nowhere to return. Because suddenly the music that we are all very familiar with, had no problems. It sounds like, these movies of Charlie Chaplin whose playback speed is wrong. And so you see all these little steps that are going too quick. And once you are on the other side of the whole beat, or let's say reconstructing music from the notation, tempo ordinario side, then weird things happen. And then if you come on a concert, even though it's a very nice performance, I can imagine, you see that picture of Charlie Chaplin just walking too fast. And suddenly you realize that music is not going through your heart anymore, but it's penetrating in your brain first. And that's actually not what it should be. Anyway. Yes, Pedro, that's a great project. 3 years and 22 CDs. And I know it's ambitious. I planned first 5 years for this, but then we have here in Belgium, in the Flanders region where I live, so that's the Dutch-speaking region. Belgium is divided. It's divided and it's not divided. It's a complicated story. We might have the most complicated politics in the world, I think. So we are a country of 11 million people. We have 3 regions. We have 2 federal states, and we have 1 federal states and 2 subdivisions. It's complicated. Anyway, in Flanders we have systems for where they subsidize culture, and the longest program there is 3 years. So we asked for a subsidy over 3 years. So then I was going through this list and saying to myself, well, can I do that in 3 years? Obviously, I've played some works, maybe 40%, 30%, I don't know. And what I actually did, but you will not be able to see that. Again, I will make a video. Here is the number of pages I have to study per day. And you know what the great thing is? If you really want to achieve something in life, sometimes it's really impossible. But sometimes if it's just spending time and energy, like practicing Beethoven, and you say, okay, 3 years for all Beethoven works, 60 works, not technically not all, but let's say 97%, 95%. That's impossible. That's the first reaction. And then you start dividing everything into bits and pieces and little boxes. And at a certain moment, I say, how many pages can I practice per day? Knowing that, for instance, for the Hammerklavier Sonata or for the Diabelli variations and some later works, I will need at least a year, if not 2 years, because those works need more than just practicing. They need really to be absorbed by my system, so to say. So I was counting, and it came, the average page I have to study is 1 per day. That's actually not so much. And so, yeah, 3 years it will be. And if it doesn't work, yeah, we'll see. Just, that's the dream, that's the vision. And the practicing sessions really helped me a lot with that. So, because I know Anna Maria McEwen, yes, that's her. Wonderful. She's a very nice lady. She plays really well the clavichord. Hello, Martin. Great to see you. The chat is going faster than that I can read. Certainly, if I talk a little bit. So yeah, that's the thing about Beethoven. We see where we end. I have in my mind the Mission Impossible project. That's actually something that will come up on the channel soon. That's related to the whole beat impressions with the Beethoven symphonies now. And we'll have other music as well. It's not always so easy. So when you have a piece that you want to reduce in speed digitally, it works for, if you have to reduce it 30%, 40% becomes a little bit tricky, but 50% is a lot. So, and then I had a wonderful conversation with Nick, who is a channel member, and he did some wonderful work on digitizing the first part of the Eroica, which in a way sounds great, but it also lacks some musicality. So it's amazing how these programs, computers now can actually give accents and give crescendos and decrescendos and do a lot of things right. But for instance, when they have a lot of eighth notes that go into a tom 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 tom, it's very unmusical. It's not with the right emphasis, and so it's great as an impression. But I fear that if you are new, that there is something lacking, which in these modified versions, although they are awfully distorted sometimes in the violins and other works, and I don't know how it comes, because sometimes it sounds rather okay, sometimes it's really off. But anyway, they gave a kind of still musical impression of that music. So we'll see how that continues. And then the Impossible project, that's leading to my dream, that's conducting the 9 symphonies of Mozart, of Beethoven, sitting at my Fritz piano as it was done at the time. Sometimes they were standing before the orchestra, but oftentimes it was just someone sitting at the piano, actually basically doing nothing. So conducting would be doing nothing. And it's great, these whole beat impressions. If you have the first part of the Eroica, just conduct in 60. So you will see how easy it is. And imagine that an orchestra has to follow these beats. So it's also the time where musicians in an orchestra needed to have some individual quality, and certainly the orchestras that played at a high level for a long time together, they were their own solists, so to say. So it's a 19th century practice to have this conductor that decides everything. Okay, Pedro, I was going to ask you to do maybe some Haydn sonatas, but maybe it's too much. I think we have on the channel 10 or 15 Haydn sonatas. Just go to the homepage on YouTube on my channel, type in Haydn, and you'll see that. It's even one video with where I put together 10 sonatas, about a video of 5 hours or so. And we'll bring them on Spotify. That's the next step. We'll make a video on that too with Pachelbel. So our Pachelbel, I have here the booklet, only the booklet of the CD. We are now officially distributed by CD Baby, and that means that we are on Amazon, everywhere, and so Spotify, iTunes, YouTube Music, and I think 50 other digital platforms. And so digitally launching recordings that I made for YouTube will be a project for the coming months. Okay, Ethan Miller, will you ever consider playing the great sonatas by Scriabin? Myself, no. That's too far out of my musical range. But we are contacting some colleague musicians. I've been talking on that for a long time, but that's coming actually. It will be for the coming months or this year. These things need time, and there are some really fine pianists from Germany, one from Holland, one from Scotland. Need to contact him again. And so basically what I plan to do with the channel is it's now all about it's me, myself, and Wim. That's the one-man show with Anya behind everything, so to say. But the production of YouTube is basically me, myself. It's a one-man show, and it's wonderful to do, but we could expand the number of musicians when the whole beat theory, is being a little bit more accepted and becomes a little bit more mainstream. And it needs to have its time. But then musicians, and I know some will have the courage, because you need to have a little bit of courage to step up and say, I want to become part of that. Maybe not uniquely doing this, but devoting a part of my time to make recordings. And then we will have the scope from Mozart, Bach of course, and then we go all the way up to Chopin. Liszt, Alcon is a project that's coming up. It's very concrete with a wonderful pianist, and yes, how far we can go. I don't know much about Brahms. Brahms didn't leave a lot of metronome numbers, but reconstructing his music from that principle would lead to very different results as well. So that's huge. Tchaikovsky, then we come into great Russian music, and honestly, I haven't looked into that, so a lot of things to do. And Scriabin, who knows? Okay. So Jonathan, what about the symphonies and piano concerto transcriptions? I know you've asked that several times, and I like when you write in the comments. That's the second project. I don't know how you name it, but the only thing is, playing a symphony on the piano is not always an easy thing to do. I want to do it right, and honestly, the best results we would have to play those things four-handed. And I've shared with you once the book of Czerny's transcriptions of Beethoven Symphony that I have here, and not here but down in the downstairs, so on the first floor, the shelf. That's a gift by Lorenz. It's a unique book because it's thick like that. It's a first print. It's everything there. But again, I have contacts with pianists who would like to do that with me, but we need to give them a little bit of time, because playing Beethoven symphonies in whole beat for a pianist, that's something. Playing it solo, it's nice, but it's by far not as nice as doing it four-handed. And I think four-handed is also, in a way, it's a wonderful formula, even better I think than two pianos. But we see how this develops. We'll see. That's in the back of my mind. Tom, which was your very first video here on YouTube? You can check it out. Just go to the channel, click on the tab videos, and then sort by date, and then go to the first one. That was Bach's Prelude and Fugue, F sharp major, I think, of the second book. Pitch black video. I remember why it was pitch black, because I put up a video camera, so my photo camera actually, And suddenly I saw how messy our house was with the kids. Still, it was things everywhere. Light was horrible, everything was horrible. And so I waited until very late. I shut down the aperture on my camera so you don't see almost nothing. You see almost nothing, and that's the pitch black first video. I was happy to do that. Uploaded 4th of February, I think, 2014. So Martin Bennett, hello Wim. Although on balance I go along with what I call the too-thick interpretation, still retain some skepticism. That's no problem. If I tell you, and I share the story a lot, Martin, that for 7 years going into our relationship with Lorenz, so I met him for the first time 2009. It's only 8 years, 2017, that for me the light for the slow movements went on, and that I really gave it a try and stopped hesitating, because that's what will, if you hesitate constantly about whether it is true, the whole beat or not, and then you're going to play, and then you say, oh my god, perhaps not here, perhaps yes there, oh here it works fine, there it doesn't work. That's actually making you miss the opportunity to really dive deep into the music. And what I decided in 2017 after making that ping pong video with Lorenz is just to give it a try. And when I released that video, of course on Facebook, it was kind of a war in the historical informed performance group. It was actually weird to see the level of, reading comments on YouTube sometimes. We will make a community guideline video. I think it's time for that. I'm all for free speech, but people should learn to behave sometimes. I received an awful comment for someone that I know very well. It's much older than I am, so I was rather shocked. But anyway, on Facebook it was much worse than that. And so I basically left that historically informed performance group, because you can think, well, whatever. But if those comments keep coming and become very personal, also by people who you know personally, there is no escape from that. Those comments find a way into your system somehow. So I left that behind. But yeah, people were saying and giving advice for not to talk too much about whole beat, just play. And that's an advice that I got regularly still today by people who really mean well. And I've given that a thought, but when I accepted that I give this a try, and I'm talking now 2017, I was just finishing Mozart sonatas, and if you do things with Mozart, people are still fine. Bach, nobody cares, whatever. Everybody cares about the music of Bach, but nobody really cares what you do with the music if it sounds okay. Mozart, Haydn is played so fast, but if you do that slower on the clavichord, they will say, well, that's typically for the clavichord. But then going to Beethoven, actually Anya and I, we had long conversations on that. What are we going to do with tempo research? Because for me in 2017, it was completely new for me. Not completely new for me. I was diving into that. I had Lorenz's book, I had read it, and it was okay for me that Lorenz studied this. But we had this disagreement before on the slow movements, But we came to a decision that there is no escape from doing this. If I want to create this space for myself to do all of that, we need to have a theoretical, part on this, because otherwise, imagine I have the first box with Beethoven, and that's the F Minor Sonata. You've all heard that. That's a shock. If I could open with even the second one or the third one, the C major, it's slower than people are playing that, but the F minor, that's for many people really a shock. So the whole series is opening with the F Minor Sonata. I think I have some other ones. No, it's actually opening with that. So, yeah, imagine that I would be interviewed at here in Belgium national radio? That's the first question. That's the first question. Why is your tempo so slow? Why? And I knew that I would take a lot of heat by doing that. But you know, the other side of the story is true that I've learned a lot of people who are so happy to know this. And I know, because I received those messages privately, not even openly. You cannot imagine how curated our music scene is. From pianists to say, well, thank you, because that was on my mind for a long time. Now I can. So yeah, there's no escape, I think, from doing that. So yeah, that's what it takes. We see how this develops. Martin continues, my biggest issue is that I would have expected more documentation. One question I wonder about is, when is the earliest published example of a metronome marking in single beat? Yeah, more documentation. I do whatever I can, but again, it's a one-man show. I think if you, and we will upgrade the website. I want to have a database on the website, so authenticsound.org or .org will be actually a go-to place for tempo research and clavichord related things. So on performance practice, but clavichord and tempo will be the main issues. And we will expand that with fingering and so on, but that's also very much neglected. But yeah, if you would list the videos that I have made on tempo research, presenting even sources, I think that's rather impressive. And the Danell source, I think it's end of discussion. Of course, the title was a little bit clickbaity, but I mean, I would never say that in the title or make a thumbnail like that if I'm not serious about it. I'm not saying that I don't make mistakes, and that's another thing. But if you put everything together, I think, yeah, everything is there. The Melzel instructions, everything is in that video. The first video on Isidore Philippe, all the elements are there. The video with the apple over my piano, I had to explain myself to Joris. There was a towel underneath, so he was happy with that. But anyway, everything is in that video. Then the video on the 10-second margin. I gave that a little bit of, clickbait title, but it's true. Were Beethoven and Chopin unfit to play their music because their maximum speed was 10 notes per second? Everything is there, but we will never ever find an historical source answering our questions, and that is something we should keep in mind all the time. If I receive questions from people, and I'm not mentioning you, but Martin, I know you're really open for this. But and I respect your doubts. It's good to have doubts. It's good to have. That's how we continue. How we continue this path of truth finding. I have not the answers to everything, and I will say stupid things, and I'm making mistakes. That's the thing. The thing is what I present. Take that into your own journey actively. But you'll see a lot of people who really don't believe it, that their reaction is always from a perspective, but you don't have a proof double beat existed. Yeah, but if that was the common practice, it's rather obvious that someone is not writing about it explicitly as we would like to see them write about it. So that's the thing. Okay, continue a little bit through the chat, because otherwise... Any plans for more Chopin videos? Jack asks. Yes, also with a wonderful pianist from Germany. I love to play Chopin the days, but it's too much. From Bach to Beethoven, that's my thing. It takes you outside this. You feel it with Beethoven. He starts to change the technique, the keyboard technique, but I read once a quote by Moscheles, and I felt so related to that. Also, when Moscheles speaks about his hand position, this classic hand is closed, as if you take an orange, And he says, when I open that, of course you open that sometimes for playing chords, but basically that's the technique Beethoven used. Chopin, it's another world. And combining those is difficult. So yeah. Okay, there the chat jumps. Just going through that a little bit quicker, perhaps. because otherwise you have the feeling that I don't read your questions because I'm really behind you now. Okay, Thomas. John is here. John is moderating the chat as well, and John has accepted also to become the moderator for Authentic Sound in the comment boxes. We were thinking about how to keep things focused to the facts, and again, we will not ban free speech, because that's the first thing that people throw to me when I say, well, but it's about, you know, if you go in the comments, and we will make a video, community guidelines. I think it's necessary for everybody to accept the fact that if you go in and you have something to say about my performance, by all means say what you have to say. If it's boring, then type in boring. I don't mind. Don't say that I am a stupid player, for instance, because there's no need for that. And if the things that we do on the tempos research, be factual, and there's no problem. The comment section is yours always. If you start a new comment, that's your box of glory, so to say. Go ahead, stay on the facts. As I sometimes reply, some people have difficulties to stay on topic and just repeat over and over and over and over again the same things. And I'm quoting that as it's all nonsense. They don't say that like that, but they will never stick to the content of that particular video. But that's fine. But don't go and spam other people, like answering questions that are asked to me, and then go in before I have the chance to answer that and say, well, this is obviously all fake and all, and don't do that. And so I received some questions and some emails also from my Patreon saying, well, I feel a little bit intimidated to even ask something because I get the question from people I don't know, and it's not always friendly. So yeah, it's a complicated thing to manage. So John is helping us with that. Okay, and it would be nice if I would not be involved in that process. Okay, just continue here. And then I'm scrolling to the chat, and sometimes it jumps forward, like YouTube is saying to me, "Hey, you have to be a little faster." So, oh my God, in single beat, I have to read in single beat actually. So, and just to finish that on the comments, I'm cool with everything. But things shouldn't become personal. Never. That's not who I am. That's not what the channel is. It's not a debate channel. You can ask questions, you can help each other out, but if you come on this channel, it's obviously a channel that promotes the idea of whole beat, so you know that. So yeah, you know what I mean. Not give too much emphasis on this point. Christian, great to have you here. It's made my love for classical music, which I had as a kid, disappear again and motivated me to practice and become a better player than I've ever been. Well, that's in one sentence the reason why this channel exists. Martin says, when you are doing brilliantly on the documentation that you are uncovering, that's not in question. It's just I would have expected more old reference to the different interpretations. Okay, well, you know, there is so much work to be done, and what I can tell you is that we are going, but again, it's basically a one-man show as we speak, and I have so many other things to do. So I'm trying to find ways to be more effective with producing for YouTube, but still the other things needs to be ongoing. I have to practice Beethoven. I want to continue my Mozart tempo guide. That will be really focused. But then all the research, and I was thinking about presenting that website in a few months, and then also inviting people to collaborate with me on things. It's difficult sometimes because we are on a distance, but you know, there are so many things to do, like the database on metronome numbers. We will launching that soon. A database on quotes, of the 19th century quotes that actually explain that metronome numbers are tempo indications given from the composer, who were serious about it. You find dozens and dozens of those quotes, but they need to be collected and to be in a database, you know. that would be wonderful to organize a kind of authentic sound squad of people who are working on this together with us. Okay. Hori asked, wasn't there a video talking about Novello being on one of the first with okay, yeah, you asked the question. Forgot about it. Yeah, Novello 1822, no doubt it's single beat. It's not slowing down. It's not the the direction of slowing down in the 19th century, that's something that's often repeated, but there is, to my knowledge at least, not a single quote in the 19th century that really points to a slowing down of tempi. But Novello is remarkable because have I made a video on Novello? I have to do that because he is an amazing person, and I think in his letters, which aren't published fully, I think it's a small portion of that. But Novello was a guy, if you don't know who he is, there's still the Novello editor. He's the same. So he was a musician, and his idea was to edit or to publish the sacred music by Mozart and Haydn, which at the time wasn't published. So he feared that, it was all in manuscript out there in Vienna and in Salzburg. So he traveled to those places. He had conversations with Constanze, so Mozart's wife, and we are now 1800. Well, from memory, don't quote me from this. Around 1820. Then he went to Salzburg to see Nannerl. So his sister was very old. She died 6 months later, and he describes even the Friederici clavichord that was still there, and he played on the keyboard. He describes that in his diary. It's wonderful. So he returns to London, publishes those works, and if you compare the metronome marks he gives with, for instance, metronomes marks given by Hummel, Moscheles, everyone else at the time, it's for similar notations exactly half. So, and you see that in the English American certainly tradition, there is an uptake in single beat. Moscheles was a friend of Novello. Mendelssohn gave house concerts at the Novellos. So, yeah. Would like to ask Moscheles they must have a similar relation that, for instance, Straube and Reger had. We have made with Henrico Stuwen 2 videos about that. It's 1910, 1914. That's amazing. Straube gave all the premieres of Reger's organ works, made an addition, and his metronome numbers are about in half of Reger's, who shifted also his metronome marks after 1914. And they lived and worked together in Leipzig and never had one word of discussion about tempi, never. So there is a lot to do, and certainly in that period. Okay. Hope that answers your question a little bit. So, Miriam, do you think there is a double beat problem with Mozart's Requiem, Kyrie, of Mozart's Requiem in general? Well, Mozart never gave metronome marks, obviously not. We don't have any indication of Mozart directly. But who gave metronome marks for Mozart's Requiem? I should ask Lorenz, I don't know. But if you have questions on that, just send me an email. But if there are metronome marks, I cannot imagine there is a problem. Okay, just continue here. Megameg, did you get my email in case it went into the spam folder? I saw an email from you, but you have to remind me which one. And the emails you sent through the website, I check them once a week or sometimes, not too often. So a little bit of patience there. Mr. Unknown, good. Would you like to play some of Beethoven's piano concertos on one of your pianos? Oh yes, if we have the orchestra. Well, I have someone who is open for a really nice cello player for the Beethoven cello sonatas. And I'm waiting actually for the Fritz to be finished because I want to do it with the Fritz. Or I want to have both pianos ready when he comes. And hope that works out fine. Because, you know, from one string instrument you can have 2, 3, you have a quartet, a quintet, and that's your small orchestra. And you can do Beethoven concerti with a small setting. Would be perfect here in the studio. Yeah, I'd like to do that. And the Fritz is a perfect piano for the concerti. Maybe a little bit too late, but it sounds really like a 1795 pianoforte. Yeah, Tom wrote a dialogue about the Hobbit tempo issues. Yeah, it's great. So Martin asked about Novello. I will make some videos on Novello. By the way, I have all his Haydn masses of Mozart. These original prints Lorenz gave them. They're downstairs. I have them. So it's amazing. Michael asks, have you ever considered to apply the whole beat approach to the opera's Requiem vocals? Yeah, that's no problem. Well, the Don Giovanni introduction was the first attempt. Also there, I dream from a project with the pianoforte, the Fritz playing the orchestral parts, and then a few singers just around the piano, and just try things out and make a project out of that. Jason, great to see you, man. I saw that you had more proof on Czerny being whole beat. Can you elaborate? Yeah, it's very simple. It's just reading his Opus 500, which is a pianoforte school. I actually finished an 11-page script on Czerny's metronome use, but that's way too long. I have to break it down. He has other passages too, which are crazy, just crazy. Asking, you know, in his pianoforte school, I don't remember which part, but you have a passage where he speaks about learning the student to keep time, and he says the professor should tick on the piano instead of beating. Ticking is much more accurate. And then he gives, actually, I'm sorry, because that will sound very hard in this microphone here. But anyway, so then he gives exercises. So you know those exercises, starting in whole note and half note, quarter note, and going back and mixing things, eighth notes introduction, then 16th notes, even going as far as 32nd notes. So we're talking now on beginners, few weak beginners. And he gives a tempo indication from quarter note 72 to quarter note 144. I mean, 16th notes, excuse me, for someone who's playing 3 weeks piano, but 32nd notes in quarter note 144, that will be in whole beat, even very fast. So, and then his famous passage, of course, in the Opus 500, where he everybody points to the audible ticks, 1 quarter note. Well, if you read that, so Jenny writes, don't quote me on it, but sometimes something like, you know, you put your metronome, blah blah blah, metronome marks. I think he has quarter note 112 in the example. Then you put your metronome 112, and you align the quarter note with the audible ticks of the metronome. Yeah, that points way more into the direction of whole beat. Every quarter note you align that with the audible ticks. It's remarkable. If people quote that sentence, the S is often left out. That's a good tradition of people who write on single beat, to quote things not correctly. But anyway, and then if you continue, then he gives not so much information, but he gives some basic tempi. For instance, for the waltz, and that's the tempo you see everywhere. Dotted half note 88, 84 can be 80, but 88 he gives. So one Schlag, 88, yeah, but Schlag is double Schlag, double beat. It's double beat. It's. I mean, you can say that's not true, but if someone say, well, what if Jenny writes Schlag or beat in English, in his English version, that's not double beat, then you have to prove me wrong on that, because that's the tradition. If you look that word up in 17th and 18th and even 19th century dictionaries, you will see that definition. So why not? Why would Jenny write about something that's not common language in that day? So Jenny is not a big source on and it's not an important source either on the metronome use, but what he writes about the metronome, it fits perfectly in the whole beat theory. Hope that helps. Sergey, very great to see you. Glad to be back. I'm better at critical thinking now, he writes, than before, and I thank this colorful community for it. That's great. And that's no problem, the colorful community. So let's keep it like that, but respect each other. And most of you, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. And music is emotion, and it's unbelievable. If you talk about tempo of all things on this planet, I mean, it's only about tempo and Beethoven and Chopin, you know, it's nothing more than that. So, and still people are freaking out. It's a lot of energy. But we should all be together in this journey of truth finding. That's the thing. And, okay. Oh, there was a question by George, and it's just George Hartman. Hi, Wim, is Moscheles in general not very underestimated? Yes, sure he is. As a musician, as an historical figure, he was Mr. Music in the time in London. And Mendelssohn was a good friend of him. And the son of Moscheles is named Felix Moscheles. Felix was his how do you call that? You know what I mean. Godfather is not the right word. I don't know. So yeah, and he wrote very, very nice music. He was actually one of the first touring concert pianists. And one of the first who also played on earlier instruments, and also one of the first who played music by others. In the context of that time, of course, was related to Beethoven. Okay. Anya gives a big thumbs up here. That's how much I'm behind. The Advocate, have you heard Schiff's lecture about the tempo of the Moonlight Sonata? No, I haven't, but a lot of people have pointed me to that. I know some other lectures by Schiff, and as much as I am impressed by Schiff's playing, I'm not impressed by his lectures. Sorry to say. I mean, generally what pianists will do in such context is just making up things on the go. And Schiff's memory for operas from Mozart is incredible. He just plays everything by heart. And so that's great because you can see connections, and connections that probably are true. But if you point to a Mozart opera to take the tempo for the Moonlight Sonata, yeah, what's the point? I mean, the opera's played too fast as well. So it's no connection. It's a connection, but it's nothing. And then my main point of criticism is that he plays for an audience. He should be very aware of his authority on this field, and if he give lectures about Beethoven and tempo like he did also with the Hammerklavier, and I'm saying that with all respect, I mean, as a pianist, I'm Mr. Nobody in comparison with Andras Schiff, but you have to realize that you are recording Beethoven stuff not in the theory you are claiming to be obviously true, and also not the Hammerklavier. He demonstrates the Hammerklavier in 138 for a few bars, but he records it in 116. Why? And so by doing that, he makes the case for people like me so much harder because he has such an enormous influence on people. And yeah, it's nothing I can do about that, but how on earth are you going to explain these tempo indications if you not start from the notation, and if you not at least consider the option of the whole beat? It should be mentioned, but they will not. Okay, just scrolling here. Jason, on the smart timings, are they reliable? Did they skip repeats or movements in those days? Did Smart really stick to what Beethoven showed him? Well, Smart, it's on our table for a long time. It's not only George Smart. So for those of you who don't know, George Smart was a conductor of the London Symphonic Orchestra. How was it called in the days? It was not... But anyway, London Orchestra, Symphonic Orchestra Organization, something like that. Moscheles was involved as well. And he knew Beethoven, traveled to Beethoven, and he left, I think, over 20 timings of concert programs, individual pieces. And the thing is, only a few of them are really usable for indicating something. And those point to single beat, that's for sure. Lawrence made a piece on that, and he will study that in the coming months more because it's an important thing, durations. The thing is that if you see those timings, they match exactly some metronome marks by Hummel. So, and if you go further, I mean, it's problematic because he heard Beethoven play the Ninth Symphony in 45 minutes. Well, that's not possible. Even the Mozart symphonies, a few that are reliable, it's even much faster than some period orchestras do that. So the thing what Lawrence thinks is that if they measured the duration of a piece to give the tempo, that this way of thinking of periodical thinking was so strong that even there they gave periodic timings. I mean, this sounds ridiculous if you're really not open for that. But I will share some sources on the metrical second, the way we call that metrical second, where pendulums are described. A second pendulum is described as going forward 1 second and back 1 second, together 1 second. So it's 2 seconds duration. Of course, 1 second plus 1 second is 2 seconds, yet it's being defined as 1 second only. And that starts with Mersenne, of which people like Mealing say that's obviously misprints, but you will see we have now 30 authors who say that, and if you read them beneath each other, it's just mind-blowing how it's possible. It's not a misprint, it was common practice. So it's like our day and night system. You have the 24-hour day and you have the 12-hour day, which is a part of the day. So the periodic unity of the day is shaped by 2 unities. So this is the same as the Danel video, you know. That's the ton, the day and night are the unities. And so if we say, yeah, we spent a day in Germany, everybody will know that it's the 12-hour day you're talking about. But if you say we spent 7 days on holiday in Spain, everybody will say 7 times 24. So there is a lot. And timings, you know, you have Milchmeier, this pianoforte school for students. Lawrence made a video on that with me. You can look it up. He made time. They didn't have a metronome at the time, so he just wrote some durations at the end of his pieces. But go and try them out. It's insane. If you halve them, and he makes that with popular tunes from the day, so horn Jagdstücke, so chasing pieces. So if you go in other concertos and you see how people are playing that music and orchestras with a real horn, then it seems to be in whole beat, the duration. It's strange. On the other hand, you have durations like, for instance, from Liszt Hammerklavier Sonata, 1 hour. That's almost exactly whole beat of the Hammerklavier. So the Third Symphony, Eroica, is 1 hour. I don't think that's a really reliable source because it's just people were complaining of the length of the Third Symphony, but 1 hour is just in between, so it says nothing. So yeah, but George Smart, we will deal with that. And if you don't know it, we just have it out. Done. Don't know everything. Okay. Would you like to play some Regen? No, that's not for me. I did play it. It's too many notes for me. It's not really my music. Hendrik Stuwen, Marcel Punt plays that very well. Metronome was invented 1814. That's correct, Miriam. John has goosebumps. I don't know from what, but just reading the chat now. If I'm silent, might be a good thing for a change. Yeah, Novello gave metronome marks, Christian, for the Mozart Requiem. You're right. Of course he did. So how much needed is a metronome database? We will do that. First on an Excel sheet, and then hopefully someone will come knock on our door. I can turn that into a database. Would be wonderful. There skips my chat again. Yeah, it's about Schiff. I mean, he is such a wonderful musician. Really is. And I don't mind if he plays that music like that. He has 2 clavichords, by the way, by Joris Potvliegers, so they know each other very well. Sergio, could Beethoven have been influenced by folk street music of his time? This seems to logical assumption, seldom brought up. Yeah, sure, why not? But I don't know much about that. The variations that he made on opera themes, yeah, a lot of things. There's so much that we can cross connect with. That's also one of the things. People talk about metronome numbers, and if they bring up a kind of skepticism, which is fine, but it's very easy to see that there are few people who are realize really how many metronome numbers we have. We have an enormous amount of metronomizations, and they all have the same problems. And you know, the problem of playability is not the main problem. It's been solved by the sources, 10 seconds, 10 notes a second, that's the maximum. But they conflict with the notation all the time. That's the thing. We have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands hundreds of thousands, a lot, but it's endless. David asks, what's your opinion on Schnabel's Hammerklavier? Why did he do it in single beats? Yeah, it's I don't know. You know, yeah, Schnabel, when people say he does it in single beat, go check them out, because very rarely it is really single beat. It's something in the range of someone was sharing with me Czerny Opus 299 complete by a lady recorded in the 70s. Very nice playing, incredibly gifted pianist. I forgot her name. Unbelievably fast, but checking that was 15 to 20% below Czerny's metronome numbers. So Schnabel, yeah, is that a recording with so many mistakes? Is that Schnabel? I don't know. You had this guy, I think it's Schnabel. His metronome marks are really interesting. I think it's single beats, but it's kind of bragging, I think, also, but because it's really fast. It's really fast. For the slow movements, he slows down. So there he goes to Holby. That's the question. That's the thing. The comments often are now, well, in slow movements it will be not possible whatsoever. But the modern performances that are often closest to whole beat are the slow movements. That's the go check. Chopin is a great example. See the Kulak. Go on IMSLP after this live stream and download Kulak's version. Kulak, student of Czerny, of the Chopin all works. His metronome marks are great. And check the preludes first, and certainly the slow ones, and try that, and it will be a shock for you, but in the other direction. And so yeah, one can say, well, correct that in the fast version, but I don't think that. Check those out. Actually, we should make a video on that. Okay, there we go. If you have a question, yeah, please tag me, because Beethoven cello sonatas, John, that I had good goosebumps from. Okay, John writes Beethoven also stole themes from other works, such as the trio from. Okay, and turned that into a trio movement. Yeah, they took a lot of tunes from each other. It was actually kind of bringing tribute to someone. Heller asks, do you know the discussion of Anton Bernhard Furstenau about the interpretation of quantz time indications as double pulslag? No, it's 1835. Make a note of this. Thank you for bringing that up. And now I should copy that here in the Google form. Let me do that, if you allow me to do that for 1 second. Would be interesting. The thing is about something that I can share with you here. The heartbeat. So it's often related to as of compared in history with you know I forgot how it calls in English when the C is withdrawing and coming back. So we call it in Dutch app and vloed. So it's a two-part system, two-part thing, but the heartbeat actually is one. It's doo-doom, doo-doom, doo-doom. That's one of the main arguments of Klaus Mieling in his book on. It's a classic. His book on French tempi and Baroque tempi. That obviously is not true, because Mersenne talks about the heartbeat, so the heartbeat is one, and he skips the comparisons completely. So in his opinion, if the pendulum goes like this, Jack, he says 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, and if you start laughing, please laugh out loud, because it's ridiculous. But that's actually his theory. It's not 1 2. So if Mersenne says the pendulum is to be compared with the conducting, then for Mieling this is 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So, but the heartbeat actually was a two-pulse system. They really thought at the time, still in Mozart's time, and the sun is shining right in my eyes, but okay. So in Mozart's time, still not for everyone, but it was still going on, that the first heartbeat was the systole, the blood going this direction, and the second one in the other direction. And then you understand also quants in a different way. So you see, it's simple, but you need to have the context. And not saying that I have the context, by the way. Okay. We have 1 hour here. Just go to the end of the chat and Nike asked if I think the Mendelssohn organ sonatas are in double beat. Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't think they are in double in whole beat. I think they are single beat. And you see that with organ music, that's something we should, or we as a community should dive into. Also the Griepenkerl metronome marks for Bach. Organ seems to be a different thing. I don't know. And I know that I will get a lot of critique for this. Hey, this is double, that it's all messed up. No, just compare similar notations with similar notations. Notation is always a foundational layer. Tempo ordinario is something that even Brahms and Tchaikovsky understood. We lost that today. Maybe in early 20th century, where music, even then I think. So basic tempo is still teaching that, 60 the second. So Mendelssohn, I think, but it's something I'm not sure about. We have some Bach transcriptions for two keyboards, for the Brandenburgische Conzerte, made in the mid of the 19th century by someone who worked on the first Bach Gesellschaft edition, so the first edition of the Bach works, official. The Dover edition is basically a reprint from that. So excellent edition, by the way. And that person, I don't remember who it was, made that transcription of the Brandenburgische Conzerte and metronomized those. They're a single beat. It's no thinking, and they are sometimes really slow, even in single beat. So why? Does that rule out all the other things? No, it's just... it's mixed. I mean, reconstructing that is not easy, but the majority of the metronome marks in the 19th century for piano and orchestra certainly are whole beats. Okay. Metronome numbers are serious. Yeah, were there tempi. I mean, it's like a CD recording of the past without sound. I'm just scrolling to your chat here. Kanberg, certainly mispronounced your name here, sorry. What are the limits of the whole beat? What are the eras that whole beat theory applies to? Do we apply it to all works of Bach, Beethoven? Well, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Bach and Mozart didn't have metronome marks, but the metronome members that we have in the early 19th century for Bach and Mozart, Haydn, yes. Well, a good start for you is go to the Czerny metronomization of Bach. Of course, Czerny didn't live in time of Bach, but he is very close still to that tradition. His tempi are excellent. Some fugues are in whole beat really slow, but that appears to be something of the time, and even in Bach's time perhaps. I don't know, leave that alone, but in the end of the 18th century we read that with Mozart as well, that fugues need to be slow. But anyway, the Inventions by Czerny, and be sure to have his first edition because they changed those metronome marks after he passed away without saying. And just try it. Try it in single and whole beat, and that's the answer to your question, I think. Okay. Mendelssohn gave metronome marks for his organ works, yeah, and also for much of his piano works and orchestral works, yeah. Metronome was hot at the time. Okay, guys, hope you like this hour of hanging out with you here, and I know I'm talking a lot. That's the nature of such live streams, yeah. And next time we are back at the piano. Maybe I will have to record that session because Joris promised to come on Monday work at the treble part of the damping system of the Fritz, which is so incredibly sensitive. And the reason why that piano is not on the channel yet is because it's not ready. And ready, I mean it sounds, it plays, but you can finish an instrument in several ways. One of the ways would be to have safety margins in every space. For instance, a damping system, you could say, well, they are so light and they're falling like on the Frenzel, but even lighter. They're falling back on the strings. They need to damp the sound, to mute the sound, obviously. But they're so light that they need to fall perfectly. What you'll see a lot is that is some lead inserted in some parts of the damping system, but that changes the touch. And so that's not the question with Joris. He wants to have it perfect, and that takes time because when he leaves, sometimes things go wrong around. Some notes that are not damping as I wish. And then the question is also, how much should this system work? I mean, on the Erard it's very obvious. It's not working 100% like a Steinway, but that's the charm of the piano. The Frenzel is dead in damping. You know, you release a note and the sound has gone. That's not on the Fritz the case, but how much? And it's so interesting. And I will finish with that because, you know, these pedal markings that we talk a lot about at the live streams and the practicing session of the Frenzel, whether you have to apply a little bit more pedal or not on the Fritz, that's a total different story because the piano is more like playing in a small church, you know. There is always a kind of reverb going on, and that's so much difference. And you know, we're thinking about it, we're taking our time, we're taking double time. Let's finish with that. So guys, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time here and also your suggestions. Also in the comment section, we get a lot of comments now. I think Authentic Sound has now sometimes more than 6,000 or 7,000 views a day. So can you imagine? I do read most comments though. I'm not replying to them. If it's a short answer, I can do that. That's the reason why we asked John to become a moderator. But I do read a lot of things, if not everything, and I appreciate all your suggestions. Also, if you share your impressions, what works with you, what doesn't work with you. I read personal stories there, people talking about their teachers, going back about their doubts they had and are solved now, of doubts they still have, questions you have. So be assured that even if I don't reply to your comments, I tend to read them every day, and I appreciate that a lot, you being here. So also for my patrons, I hope you don't mind, I mention those every time at the end of the live stream. They really make things possible. If you want us to continue with this, it takes a lot of time. Throwing in $1 a month even makes a huge difference. The patrons are pushing me really to through boundaries of you know what I mean. So, and we have a monthly hangout on Skype or Zoom. So a session like this, but one-to-one with video calls. So if that's something for you, I really appreciate that. Okay, and as for now, I'm going to sit in the sun a little bit. It's cold outside, but it's a nice evening outside here in Belgium. And I'm looking here for my computer. Okay, here it is. Okay, guys, have a nice day, nice evening, morning, and hope to see you soon again. Bye.